straight to the daf. Okay, where did we leave off? Oh, on the bottom, right? Yeah, Boy Ravava Bar Mamal. Is that where we left off? Anybody know? Um, we started, we left by Boyer, right? The last four words? Did we get? Yeah, that's what we got up to. Yes? Anybody can hear me or what?
I think so, yes.
We could hear you.
All right, that's good. All right, you want to hit the record? Did you hit the record?
Yes, it's recording.
Oh, it is recording. Okay. Boy Ravava Bar Mamal. So Ravava Bar Mamal asked a shaila. Now on to Amud Aleph. This go there are a lot of rapid fire shilas here. So again, the sugi that we're talking about is you have a guy living on the downstairs. In the downstairs, you have a guy living upstairs, and the house falls down. So then we said that the top guy can move into the bottom guy, meaning obviously you can't build the second floor until the first floor is built. So if the guy on the first floor doesn't want to build it, so the thing is that the top guy could go. The top guy would live in the bottom guy's house with him, without him. That's an interesting thing in the poskim, shaila in the poskim, whether he kicks the guy out or not, and until he builds it, and then am I skipping the mission? Am I saying the wrong mission? No, I'm not sure. Yeah, no, that's a mission. Yeah. So now the Gemara has a bunch of shots. Kishahu dar levadai. Right? Kishahu dar when he lives in the downstairs. Levadai dar kedem ekara. Does he stay alone? Which was what I just said. Idilma shneim darin. Or do both of them stay there? I was getting mixed up with a different thing. So, but anyways, this is the Gemara's shayla. I thought it was Mishanim's shayla. Again,
were you up to? Were you up to?
Top line now in Kufi Yud Zayin Amud Aleph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kishudar, meaning we're saying that the top guy goes to live in the bottom guy's house. So now when he's living there, does he live there by himself, and meaning he kicks him out? All right? Or or they both live there. Because the guy can say to him, I didn't rent you the upstairs with the das that you're going to be able to kick me out. Meaning I rented it you in case if something goes wrong with the house, with the upstairs, so then you'll come live with me, but you can't kick me out. All right, and if you say shneim darin boy, and if you say that both of them do live there, so when the upstairs guy uses the downstairs guy's apartment, derech psachim mishtamish, does he come right through the front door, or derech gagan mishtamish, or does he go through the roof? Meaning, since the shaila is since he has access, meaning he's only supposed to have access from the upstairs, so maybe that's how he has to go to the house. He goes upstairs to his house and goes through the hole in the floor.
Is that a practical suggestion?
Is it a practical suggestion?
I mean, we're not really saying that's what he should do.
Yes, we are. I mean, that's what the Gemara says.
He's supposed to go up the stairs and then go through go down with the rope, or go through like a fire department, like with a pole in there.
Rashi
No,
says
I'm
with a
saying like
ladder.
that a ladder. That's a realistic suggestion that he should
What?
do that
Yeah,
every
why?
day of his
It's not
life.
his. It doesn't belong to him. The bottom doesn't belong to him. The top belongs to him. Well, you don't like it because in Rockaway and Lawrence, we all walk through the front door. Some people walk up the second floor.
One
No, but
second. We're not saying walk up through the
there's no
second
steps.
floor. We're saying walk up through the second floor and then go through the hole in your seat in your
Because it
floor.
doesn't belong to him. The bottom doesn't belong to him.
So then fix the apartment.
Okay,
Right, but
but
the
the
guy's
guy's
not
not.
fixing.
The guy doesn't agree on the bottom. I live in a two-family house. The guy, there's two people in the house. There's not one guy. There's two people. They have to make decisions here. What's the matter?
Meaning
I think.
what? He's
Okay.
not fighting.
Well,
He's giving up
No,
on you.
because it doesn't make sense to me that you're asking him to go through the through the floor back downstairs. It doesn't. That doesn't make.
Who
That doesn't
has
make
to
sense to
fix
me.
it? The guy on the top or the guy on the bottom?
You tell me who has to fix it.
The
The
Gemara's
guy on the
going
bottom.
through that chocolate medallion now.
I understand that, but it's not a realistic suggestion to say that I could live there. It's okay for me to live in that apartment, but you just have to go through this. You have to go through the roof. That's
Not go through
normal.
the roof. You're going through the second floor.
No, but you're going through the hole in the roof. How's he getting to the second floor? He's walking up the stairs, walking into his apartment, and falling down. That's how he's getting to the first floor?
Yeah, no, he has to get a ladder.
David, that's how they
Okay.
do it in Zevi's house.
Okay, I hear you. It doesn't make sense to me that that's a realistic suggestion, that that's the way the guy's going to live. Okay?
No, until the guy
Right,
on
but
the
it's
first.
right, but
Until the guy on the first floor decides to fix it, which might be
No.
never.
Okay, but that's
Okay, it doesn't make sense to me. But
So
we
the
can go
Gemara
by.
is asking. The Gemara
doesn't
is
make
going
sense to me.
through all. The Gemara is going through all the options. What should a guy do?
So I'm asking if this is a realistic option because it doesn't make sense to me. But we could go weiter. It's fine.
Okay.
no, the point is that the landlord could say, listen, you can't share my front door. You can come through the way that you were normally supposed to come. But no, hey, listen, you both have a good point. Yeah.
We
So
don't
anyways,
have to. Or we don't have to be politically correct. You could say either I'm wrong or Spears.
no, I hear both sides. I hear both sides of them. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense to me, but I could hear that the downstairs guy could say, yeah, listen, you have access to my house because I need to share my house with you, but you have access from the upstairs, not from
The
the
guy on
downstairs.
the downstairs decided not to fix it.
Right, so he should
The guy.
get punished. This is a rental from him. He's punished. Oh, I would think I was being Mazaras him to get him to do what he's supposed to do. I would say that he should let him through the front door. But on the other hand, he could say, listen, that's not the way the deal was meant. The deal was meant
Once
that
he
you're supposed
lets
to
him through
come
the
to my
front,
apartment from the upstairs.
once he lets him through the front door, he's making him feel very comfortable, and he will not be so inclined to do it.
Fakert. What do you mean? The downstairs guy is the one we want to be uncomfortable so that he fixes the upstairs.
Right.
I think. Anyway, so the Gemara, let's see the Gemara. Mi Amar Kidimei Kara. Do we say that it's like at the beginning? My Mei Kara Derech Gagin. Right? Meaning the only way, in the beginning, the way he has access to the landlord's first floor apartment is not through. He can't walk through the guy's front door. I guess he could knock on the ceiling and come from upstairs. Hashtanami Derech Gagin. So also now through the roof, as big a pain as it is, but that's what the access is. Or he could say, the meaning the upstairs guy could say, I was makabel on myself to rent an upstairs. I was not makabel that in order to live in an apartment I have to go upstairs in order to go downstairs. Right? That was not what I was makabel. Right, so then fine. So then imtim salayim. So that's that child. Imtim salayim Metzia. Amrli alivi read the like If you're gonna say that the upstairs guy could say, I didn't plan on where I'm going to access my apartment is to go upstairs and then come downstairs. What happens if it's a 3-story apartment and the guy has the second floor and the third floor? If chis el yaina, and now the top floor, right, got a hole in the roof, meaning in its floor. The top floor had a hole, meaning there was a hole between the second story and the third story. Nachas v'dar v'tachtoina. So then he could go live for sure, the guy living on the third floor, or if he has both floors, if he has both floors, not a shaila, that's the truth. But the guy from the upstairs could certainly come down to the second floor. If it's tataina, right? But if the lower one did, maybe he has to go upstairs, right? Or does he go downstairs? Right? Meaning, again, the 3-story house and the hole. So if the hole goes between the third floor and the second floor, so it's pashut, that the guy on the third floor can move it to the second floor. Question is when it's a 3-story house and the hole goes in the ceiling between the first floor and the second floor. So now, does this guy go upstairs or does he go downstairs? So Amalei, because what could he say? Meaning the first floor guy, Shame Aliyah Kavila Salach. You were makabel on yourself to go and Aliyah. Dilma, Chad Aliyah Kabbalah, or maybe you were makabel on yourself to go up 1 flight of stairs. Shtei Aliyahs like Kabbalah, but you were makabel 2 Aliyahs. Right? So he can't be mechayev him to go up 2 floors instead of 1. Tekel, so Gemara says all these shilas are takels. Right? Fine, and then you get into the standard imtim tzalaymar. So, does the Gemara usually, according to the Rambam, says imtim tzalaymars? That's the way the Gemara meets the paskin, like fine. Okay, so Rabbi Yossi Omer hatachtoin and noisin is a ticker. So we said Rabbi Yossi shita was that the bottom guy, again, when there's a hole in between the first and second floor. So the Tanakama held that the first floor guy has to fix the entire ceiling / floor of the second floor guy. And Rabbi Yossi says that the ceiling has to be fixed by the guy on the first floor. But the plaster, meaning the finishing of the floor from the second floor guy, that has to be done by the second floor. Meaning, so there's the guy on the first floor, and the second floor guy has to at least plaster. Right. So my tikra. So Gemara says, what do you mean by a tikra? What exactly does he have to put in? It's made out of reeds and thorns. I guess that's how they made their roofs. The Satini, such an interesting name. Satini Amar Rav Shimon Lakish. Rashi says Satini was a Talmud of Rish Lakish. Satini Amar Rav Shimon Lakish Lavachim. It's made out of pieces of wood. Like Pligian, there's no machlokes. Marki Yasrei or Marki Yasrei. Each one was talking about what the custom was in their community of what to put on the roof. Hanu Beitrei. So I think one has a story here. Hanu Beitrei. There were 2 people. To have a diary. One was living upstairs and one was living downstairs. Yeah. If chis maziva, and then the maziva is also like plaster that covers over the how do you call it? Beams, right? But the beams are still there. Meaning, till now we're talking about where there's a hole in the roof. Now we're talking about where there was plaster. There's plaster got removed, but there's still beams. So Kimashi Maya, when he would wash his hands, I guess, they wash their hands on the floor. So when he would wash his hands upstairs, it would go leak because there's no plaster. So since the beams were not finished, so then it would leak right through the beams. So the Gemara is asking me Masaka, so now who has to fix it? Because Lamaisa, the second floor guy has a floor. There's no hole in there. It's just not finished. So the top guy has to fix it. and he says that the bottom guy has to be Masakin. The Simon, the Yosef, who run Mitzrayim, right? The Pasuk says that Yosef went down to Mitzrayim. So here too, it's Rabbi Yossi who's saying that you gotta the bottom guys. Hura, it's a play on words. That's the way to remember. Okay, so what's Pshat in this machloikas? Why does one mandomer say that the upstairs guy's got to fix it? Why does one mandomer say that the downstairs guy's to fix it? So the Gemara says on the first wide line now, let's say they're having the same machloikas between Rabbi Yossi and the Chacham. The man, the Amar Ha'elyon, the Sakat, the Sover Alam Mazik, Lahar, the shita that says that the upstairs guy, who's the one pouring the water, and the water is landing on the head of the downstairs guy, he holds that it's on the mazik. Why? Because the mazik, he's on the damager has the responsibility to make sure he doesn't damage. It's on the person who potentially is getting damaged to protect himself. Right? Basically, this would be the mashal to understand this machlokes, I think, would be who has the right in the crosswalk. Is it the pedestrian's responsibility to make sure they don't get damaged from a car, or is it a car that has to make sure that he doesn't damage the pedestrian? Right? Whose responsibility? Now, obviously, we're going to say that it's both people's responsibility, but it seems like in America, if somebody's in a crosswalk, maybe not in New York, but the official law is that when a pedestrian is in the crosswalk, you have to yield to the pedestrian, right? So they're clearly paskening that it's the mazik who's gotta be vigilant, has to watch. But here we have the machlokes. So we're saying it's a machlokes, Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim, whether it's up to the mazik to make sure his things don't damage, or it's the nizik's responsibility to make sure that he doesn't get damaged. Right, so that's the basic machlokes. So Gemara says it's not, and so then we want to say that that's the same machlokes here. The one that says it's the mazik's responsibility says that the upstairs guy who's pouring water on the floor, it's his responsibility to make sure he doesn't damage the guy on the first floor. And the guy on the first floor, and the other sheet that says no, it's the guy on the first floor's responsibility to make sure he does not get damage from the guy. Right? Pretty straightforward. But then the Gemara says, "But Tizber, Rabbi Yosef, Zakin, Pligi, do they really? Is their machlokes really by damages?" But if we heard the exact opposite. Right? Because we learned when we had this a couple of, I don't know how many blot ago we had it, but there's a din that you have to make sure that your trees stay away from a bar, from your friend's bar by 25 amas. Why? Because that is the length that will affect. Right, so limit of roots will affect the bar. So marchikin is a element of bar etzem b'chamish amma 25 amos, b'charav b'shipma chamishim am, and by carob trees and sycamore trees it's 50 amos. You got to make sure. Beimin lamala, beimin atzad. Whether these trees are going from the top or they're growing from the side. Im habar kidem. But I'd say the bar was there first, right? So meaning, so whose responsibility is it? You can see already this machlok is happening very, very simply, right? Well, my tree was there first, my bar was there first, right? So how does that work? Again, certainly if a guy has a bar, you're not allowed to grow your tree within 25 amas of it, or if it's a sycamore tree or a carob tree, so then it's got to be 20, it's got to be 50, right? So imabar kadam kaitzit for nice and dumb. So then he cuts it, and meaning he cuts down the tree, but he has to pay for it. The guy from the bar has to pay for it. And ilan kadam, if the tree goes first, lo yakuts, then you don't cut it down. Something it's right because the tree was there first. Why should he get damaged? Suffix zeh kodim is suffix zeh kodim. If it's a suffix, which one? This one goes first or this one goes first? Lo yakuts, then you don't cut it down. Rabbi Yossi Omer, so that's the sheet of Tanakama. So on a suffix, you don't cut it down. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Afal Pisha Bar Kedemis Leilan, even if the bar was there before the tree, Lo Yakutz, you don't cut it down. Shezeh Chayfer B'Seich Shaloi, V'zeh Noita B'Seich Shaloi. This one could dig a hole in his property, and this one could plant in his property. Right? So what do we see from this machlokes? We see from this machlokes that Rabbi Yossi says, no, there's none of this proving things, right? Meaning each one to their own. The mazik does not have to worry that he's going to damage. And the Tanakama says you do have to worry about it. So isn't that the opposite of what we just said? Right? We just said that that Rabbi Yossi is the one that's worried about the mazik, and the Chachamim are not. Right? So that's a stira. So then it can't be the same machlokes. So Alma, now the Gemara says Rabbi Yossi savar ala nizik laharchikas atzmai. It's on the nizik to distance himself. Rabbanan savar ala mazik laharchikas atzmai, and it's on the mazik to distance himself. So that can't be because we just said it's the opposite. Ella ikalamemar pligi plug the Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan to hasam kamifligi. So enochanami, this machlokes that we have over who's responsible for the water going down from the second floor to the first floor is the same machlokes as Rabbi Yossi coming with the guy's tree damaging a bar, right? So meaning we're saying that it's the machlokes. We wanted to initially say it's the machlokes over who's responsible. Is the mazik responsible to make sure he doesn't damage, or is the nizik responsible to make sure he doesn't get damaged, right? And now we're saying no, it's the same machlokes as if you're responsible to make sure that your tree doesn't grow anywhere near somebody else's bar. Okay, so now what's the machlokes? Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbanan dahacha b'may. Fine. So in the Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan in our Mishnah, right, over whether the first floor guy has to fix the entire hole, or according to Rabbi Yossi, he does not have to fix the entire hole. He just has to fix the base of it, and the plastering has to be done by the second floor guy. What's their machlokes? The chayzik tikra kamifligi. Their machlokes is if the upstairs guy wants, and this is also a common problem with the landlord tenant. If the landlord's downstairs and the tenant's upstairs, meaning the tenant upstairs says, your floors creak and it doesn't feel solid. I don't know if that's so common. It's usually the downstairs that's complaining that the upstairs guy's making so much noise, right? But whatever it is, here we're talking about the upstairs guy says, your ceiling is not solid. So the downstairs guy could say, well, that's your floor, so it's not my issue. And the upstairs guy could say, well, it's your ceiling, so you have to take care of it, right? So Rabbanan Savri Maziva Achzuke Tikrahu. A maziva plastering is there to strengthen the beams. Whose job is it to be machzik the boards, the ceiling, whatever the ceiling beams? That's the bottom guys. Rabbi Yossi savar maziva ashviya gumasu. Putting on plaster is not there to strengthen the beams. It's there to the equivalent of smoothing out a floor. Whose responsibility is smoothing out a floor? Well, the guy who's living there that needs the floor. Shviya gumas is on the upstairs guy's responsibility. So that's the machlokes, the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi. Again, we're over whether putting plaster on beams is that considered the responsibility of the guy's ceiling, in which case it's the first floor's guy's responsibility, or is it considered, smoothing out the floor, which means it's the upstairs guy's responsibility. So Gemara says, "Aini, it's not true." Omar Rav Ashi ki avina be Rav Kahana have amrino. And when I was by Rav Kahana, they would say, "Moed Rav Yossi begiri delay." We're talking about Rav Yossi's maida, where it's his literally means it's his arrows. meaning Rabbi Yossi is Maida. Now this is going back. This is going back to the case of where the water is dripping down. So we said that Rabbi Yossi would say it's a responsibility of the nizik, right? But now we're saying the Gemara is going to ask, if Rabbi Yossi is Maida, where it's a straight damage from the damager, then it's up to the damager to be responsible, right? Meaning, meaning whose responsibility is if a guy has a gun? Let's talk in Yonah the Yomi. A guy has a gun. Whose responsibility? Does that mean because one guy comes to shul with a gun, it's everybody's responsibility to come with bulletproof vests so that the guy doesn't shoot them? No, right? It's the responsibility of the owner of the gun to make sure he doesn't damage anybody. Right? So meaning when it's a direct damage, even Rabbi Yossi's might that it's up to the mazik. So by the water, the guy's taking water, pouring it down on the floor. Right? He's pouring the water down on the floor. So that's a direct damage. He's pouring water on his floor, and it's going through the ceiling and dripping down on top of the guy's house, on top of the guy's head. Right? So that's a direct damage. Even Rabbi Yossi's might that's the mazik's issue. You can't be pouring water on a guy. Imagine a guy on the second floor pours water on his floor, and it leaks through to the first floor guy, right? And he says to the first floor guy, "Well, fix your ceiling," right? Because we'll tell him, "No, stop pouring water." Right? So Rabbi Yossi would be Maida. So how would you understand it then? So Gemara says it's not talking about where the water went direct. The Paski Maya v'Hadar Nafli. It's talking about where the water stopped and then it fell. Meaning, it's not like there's a hole in the floor, right? It's talking about where he poured the water, let's say, in this corner of the room, and then the water traveled. Then it hung out a little bit like in a puddle. Then it moved. So Mamela, it's sort of like a grama. This gets back into our whole grama thing. Mamela, since it's a grama, it's not considered direct. And since it's not considered direct, so therefore it's not his, it's even Rabbi Yossi would be moida that it's not his responsibility. Right? Okay, so that's that. Yeah, fine. Zog the Mishnah. As we continue with these machloiksim here. Yeah. Habayis v'haliyah. If you have a house and a second floor, shel shnayim, and it belongs to both to two. Again, Rashi says that it's two brothers that we yoirish. Right. Well, exactly why Rashi has to say that that's the case is already also a debate. Why is Rashi saying that it's two brothers that yarshind? It could be, why can it be belonging to any two partners? But anyway, so Bayaz Aliyah Shashnayim Shanaflu.
The Gemara doesn't handle it, no?
The Gemara does not handle it. No.
So who says? Well, what's Pshat, Taka?
Rashi says it.
No, I understand. Why does Rashi have to say that?
I don't know. I mean, it's there's tirutzim for why he's saying it, because if it's I have to try to remember now. If it's yarshind, I think in the Mefarshim say it.
I didn't see anything. That's what was.
I thought before the Mefarshim discussed it.
Okay.
Wasn't in. I don't remember. I don't remember why.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a tumult. It's a tumult why Rashi says that.
Why can't you say Pasha? Rashi learns there's two cases we're dealing with. This is the same case as the first Mishnah, and the second Mishnah was a different case. There doesn't need to be a specific reason why this needs to be Achim. The first Mishnah needed it to be because he wanted a case where they weren't makbid on each other. All Rashi's saying here is it's not rented. So it's the same as the first case.
Yeah, okay, but you're saying that it's gonna be one will line all the cases. Okay, I hear.
I think there's a
Either way,
long
but
marsha
Rashi,
about
there's
it,
another.
by the way.
I know somebody discusses it. I'm not
Marsha, I
remembering
think
now.
there's a long marsha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
What does he say?
I don't know. I just remember seeing that it was he asked the question.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's see. So the bias of it belongs to two women that fell down. So Amar Balaliyah the Balabayas living nice. So the upstairs guy tells the Balabayas to build it. Right? Meaning he wants him to build the walls and the ceilings of the downstairs. And then the upstairs guy will go build on top of that. Right? It's pretty straightforward. He can't build his second floor unless the guy on the first floor builds it. Now, there's a chiddush here, I don't know if it's a chiddush, but Rashi says that the ceiling is the responsibility of the guy on the first floor. Why is that so pashut? The guy on the first floor would say, I'll build the walls, I'll build you the walls. But why do I need to build the ceiling? If you want to build a floor on top of this, so you build the ceiling.
Maybe because the second floor won't be able to hold without it.
Yeah, but if he said you want the second floor, you build a floor.
If you build a house on stilts, right? So just with a floor without a ceiling on the first floor, it's not so strong. You have to put usually a cement thing to support the second floor.
You mean so good? So I mean,
so that means it has to be my roof on the first floor.
Has to be your roof.
It's heavy, the second floor. When you build a building on stilts, right?
Correct.
Imagine a building on stilts. If you just build with the floor of the top guy, it's usually there's a piece that's a ceiling of the first floor. Otherwise, it's not. How's it going to hold the weight of the second floor?
Oh, we're gonna get to it in the next Mishnah of all the way. The bottom line is that if you want to build a floor on top of my floor, I'm perfectly fine living sort of like the outdoors. So if you don't like it, so you build a floor. Okay, whatever. That's Rashi says it's the first floor guy's responsibility to build the ceiling. Then what happens after that, that's up to the second floor. Either way, the second floor guy is tining on the first floor guy. I need you to build the first floor in order for me to build the second floor. When it writes to live nice, and he does not want to build it. So what happens is the upstairs guy builds the house. The darba meaning he builds the first floor, and he lives in the first floor until the owner gives him his expenses for building it. Meaning the first floor guy doesn't want to build it. He said, okay, I'm building the first floor. I'm living there until you pay me for the first floor. Once you pay me for the first floor, I'll build the second floor. Then you can move into the first floor.
Pays expenses and rent.
What?
He pays expenses and rent.
Mashma like not like that. It's not just expenses.
Okay.
But that's where Rabbi Yehuda comes. Rabbi Yehuda, Aimer. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Af zed dar right? Basically, exactly what you're saying. Even this guy ends up living in his friend's house. So tzarich lahalas leischari has to pay rent. Meaning, granted that the first floor guy is supposed to build the building. Right? Fine. So he's supposed to build it. So the second guy can tie him, I need you to build the first floor in order for me to get to the second floor. Fine. But now that he lived in that first floor for a year, doesn't he owe him rent? The Maisa, he owes him rent. He lived in the guy's house for a year, rent-free. Right? Meaning once he pays him for the expenses, he's living there rent-free. So Rabbi Yehuda says he has to do that. So then Ella Balaliyah Bainas Abayas Vesaliyah. What happens is that the owner of the second floor builds the first floor and the second floor, right? And Makares El Yoina, and he builds a roof on the top one, meaning he basically builds the second floor. But he could sleep in the downstairs until he gives him his expenses. Now, why? What does this help? Bottom line, if he's still living in the guy's first floor apartment. But here it's different because he doesn't have to pay rent because he told him he could tell him, I have the second floor apartment. Right? Meaning I wasn't getting any benefit from you. Right? It's not zenene v'zeh lo yicha- I mean, it's still zenene v'zeh lo yichasa, but I mean, he's not gaining anything. Right? He's not gaining anything because he has an apartment to live in. All right. So then why is he living in the downstairs apartment? Why doesn't he just live in the upstairs apartment? That's in order to pressure the guy to pay him for his expenses. You got Rabbi Yehuda saying, build the second floor, the first floor and the second floor. Now, because he built himself the second floor, he's gaining nothing by living on the first floor. There's no gain because he has a second floor to live in. So Mamela, he's not considered like benefiting from somebody for free. Rabbi Yehuda has a big issue. We're going to see that in the Gemara right now. Rabbi Yehuda has an issue with somebody taking something for free from somebody else. You got to always pay. Right? That's Shita's Rabbi Yehuda. So here, the reason why he's building he's building the second floor, so that now he's not gaining anything from living in the guy on the first floor. Okay, so why is he living in the guy's first floor? Just in order to pressure him to pay up his bills. What are you saying?
Presumably, while he's living in the downstairs, he can't rent the upstairs to someone else. So then he would be gaining.
I would agree with that statement. That would make sense. No? Yeah. Can't go renting it out and then say you want to take money for it. Yeah, masking. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. We'll do a little less than half the Amid because either way, Wednesday's daf is very short, so I'll have to go. So let's just do this first shtickle. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says on Tamei Amar Rabbi Yochanan b'shloisha mekaymes, in 3 places Shana lanu Rabbi Yehuda asal adam shehanim imam and chaverei. There's 3 places in Shas that Rabbi Yehuda says that you're not allowed to benefit from your friend's things without paying. Meaning he holds that zenen v'zelei so you still have to pay for. Yeah, so for chadaha, that's one is our Mishnah, where he does not let the guy just freeload, the second floor guy freeload and live in the first guy's floor's house without at least paying some sort of rent. Idoch mahi, what's the other one? Detran hanoisen tsemer letzava. If somebody gives, so we had this case many times, somebody gives wool to a dyer. Letzvayale Adam, and he wanted it to be dyed red. Vitzavu shachar, and he dyed it black. Shachar vitzavay Adam, or he was black. He wanted it to be black, and he dyed it red. So Rameir Reimer Nisanlay Demate Simroi. Rameir says you just give him. He pays the owner, meaning the dyer who messed up. Rameir's sheet is not so easy to understand. He gives him the price of the wool, and he gets to keep the wool. Right? Why? Because he was kainet with the shinoi. Once he was meshanet, he's kainet. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer im ashvach yasser al yitzi haloitza. If the amount that it's worth is more than it cost the expenses to make the dye the wrong color, so nice and le'as then the owner gives the dyer the cheaper amount, the expenses. And if the expenses were more than the clothing is worth now, nice and le'as shvach, then he gives him the shvach. Meaning Rabbi Yehuda holds that the owner he's got his yadai as a yadai al hel yoina. He's got the advantage because this guy messed him up. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda holds right that the guy who dyed it wrong can't just take this clothing for free, right? Just pays him for the wool, and now he has a brand new. He's again according to Rameir, the guy takes the clothing and keeps it, even though he's the one that messed it up. Even if a black clothing, the guy wanted it red and he made it black, or vice versa. So even if he did that, right, and he messed up, but it could be now that's worth $1,000, he still gets to keep it because on the technicals of a ganav being kind of with a shinu. Rabbi Yehuda says, how could that be that somebody can make money off of somebody else like that? Can't be. So therefore, he only gets the least, whether the expenses or either gets the expenses or what it's worth, whichever one is less. What's the third case where Rabbi Yehuda is worried about somebody gaining off of somebody else? Let's say a guy pays back part of his loan. So there's a shtar for how much the loan is, and he paid back part of it. So the problem is he only paid back part of it, so the lender still has to keep the star, because if he doesn't keep the star, maybe the guy won't. He won't have proof that there was ever a loan. Right? That's one. Two is but the problem is that if he doesn't give it back, then the lender can come back and say, hey, you never paid me anything. Right? So what do you do with this case? So again, Misha Para Miktus, he paid part of the Chayva. Just started. What he did is he put the star. So what they did is they went to a what do you call the third party? What do you call it? Mediator, not a mediator. There's another word for that. Okay, let's say a mediator. So a third party. Arbitrator, mediator, what? Yeah, what? Yeah,
Negotiator, whatever.
A guy in, I don't know, something. We have one of these things, right? So he gives it to him, and he tells the guy, if I don't give you the rest of the loan, mikan ba'adzman ploini, from now until whatever date he says, ten loy shtaroi, then you give the lender his shtar, and he can collect from me the whole amount of the loan, right? So Higiyas man v'loy nasan, if that time came and he didn't pay up the rest of the loan, so Rabbi Yossi Omer Yitin, Rabbi Yossi says he has to give him the whole lot. He said if he doesn't pay him back by a certain time, he's going to pay him back the entire loan, even though he already paid back part of the loan. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lo Yitin, Rabbi Yehuda says no, you can't give it. He doesn't give it. Right? Because how can it be that the lender's making money off of somebody else when he didn't even do anything wrong? He didn't do anything. Why should he make money? So you see 3 cases where Rabbi Yehuda is concerned with somebody making money from somebody else for nothing. So now the Gemara tries and slug up all these 3. Amai. Who says it's all true? Dilma Adkan like Rabbi Yehuda Hacha, here by the case of the second floor and the first floor falling down. And Rabbi Yehuda says he cannot live rent-free in the first floor guy, because there's no such thing as living in somebody's house and not causing some sort of damage. Shacharisa means black. I mean, the second floor guy is going to be living in the first floor guy's house. He's going to turn on the fire. The walls are going to get black. So there's actually going to be a loss to the first floor guy. It's not like he's just living there and there's going to be no loss at all. There is going to be a loss, so therefore he has to pay for it. And meaning we don't necessarily see that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned for somebody who's not going to have any, who's going to just totally freeload over somebody else. Inami, and the same thing with the case of dyeing it red, Betzavo Shachar, and he's dyeing it black, Mishum, to come Mishana. Because maybe the reason is because he changed it. He was supposed to do it red and he did it black, or he was supposed to do it black, he did it red. We know in the Mishnah, I don't remember where the Mishnah was, but we had it that anybody who changes something, he always has the lower hand. He's the weaker, so he always gets the least payment. In the case of the third party holding on to the shtar, and then the lender says, "I don't pay it all back by a certain time. He's not going to be paid. He's going to be paid up. I'm going to pay him up the full amount. Have a asmachta. That's called an asmachta, which we know that's the whole gambling issue." Shamina and later Yehuda the Amar like Kani, and we know that Yehuda holds an asmachta is like Kani. Asmachta is the whole din of gambling, right? That when this guy said that he's going to pay, if he doesn't pay back by this certain amount of time, he's going to pay back the whole loan. He didn't really have in his head at all that he is going to ever have to pay him back, because he thought for sure he's going to pay back the loan, right? So therefore, since he never had that in mind, Mameli he holds a smachtas like Kanya, and that's why he's not kind of. Yeah. Okay.
Does
That's a little
hold
early
all
for the
of these
daf.
3 things?
What do you mean?
We said that there's a reason he said all 3, but if all the reasons hold true, then Rabbi Yochanan's what Rabbi Yochanan said is not necessarily true.
What do you mean?
Rabbi Yochanan said that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you can't freeload of someone else. But if Rabbi Yehuda holds of all the 3 reasons that we just gave why he needs all 3, then where does Rabbi Yochanan know that from? Maybe it's Badafka in these three situations.
Isn't that what he's saying? That he's saying we don't know in these three cases.
What do you
No?
mean? Yeah, but he's
He's
saying
saying,
that that you can't freeload.
well, we're saying no. We're saying maybe it's not the tzad hashava.
Oh, that's the Amai.
We're saying that each one has its own reason why he would say that. Right?
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, we'll stop over here. We'll stop over here. And I'll say Tillim.